Today, I want to talk to you about the 8 keys to staying motivated with goals.
Hi everyone, Robert Villanueva here. Over a buyer's home. And of course, as always, I'll see you at the top.
That's right. There's 8 key elements that I want to share with you that keeps you motivated staying with goals. Now, let's start from the other end of the spectrum. Why are we not motivated? We find ourselves in this position from time to time. I don't care who you are. There's some lack of motivation. And in most cases, it's going to be based on, of course, our business. Now, that's what we're going to talk about today. But it can show up in so many different areas of your life. It can be personal goals. It can be things, like going through a weight loss or gain journey. Just all of these things that take place in regards to our lives, including, of course, that of relationship goals. The reason why we are not motivated is because we actually don't have clearly defined goals. We don't have a destination. We don't know what is the purpose of with whatever the task at hand is. Now, of course, being a realtor, talking to mostly realtors, when it comes time to being motivated, you want to have these goals very clearly defined. And we're going to talk about that as we continue to move forward. So with that, how do we get motivated? Now, the way we get motivated is we want to be in a position where we can identify certain things that we want in our lives. Okay. And they come in a variety of different ways, and so many different ways that these goals can come from. Okay. It's not always about the cars, the boats, the trips. It's not always about that. Okay. There are so many variations to these goals. Now, let me give you an example. I've used this example in a lot of my videos. And again, I want to make sure that I give credit to whoever actually wrote this. This is not my example. This is what I call as a plank analogy. And what's the plank analogy? Well, if I challenged you to cross a plank that is 3 feet wide, 3 feet off the ground, from one side of the street to the other side of the street, and I challenged you and I said, basically, I will challenge you $100 to cross this plank. How many of you would actually cross that plank? I know I would. I would just run across that thing and give me my $100, right? Well, this what ends up happening is there's not really a lot of risk that's involved. And what I'm describing is kind of like a job, if you want to call it that. You know, if you clock in, you clock out at the end of the week or 2 weeks, whenever you get paid, that you're going to get X amount of dollars. Well, talking to real estate agents, and mostly again, and for those people that are actually in other sales divisions, it's the exact same thing. We actually don't have that safety net, if you want to call it that. Then we go over to the second example of that exact same analogy. In that second example, now we're actually crossing the plank that is again 3 feet wide from one side of the street to the other side of the street. Same bet, $100. However, the risk is different. Now we're 100 stories in the air. How many of you would take that bet? I know I wouldn't. Okay. My life is way worth more than $100. Okay. Now, in that third example, we're using the exact same plank, 3 feet wide, the same distance from one side of the street to the other side of the street. And in this third example, in the other building, now there is your most prized possession or loved one. And in that, again, excuse the example, the other building, you have the prized possession and or most loved one, and now that building is on fire, and the only person that can save them is you. Now, when it comes time to that, are you going to take that $100 bet? I know I would. I probably would be offended if somebody offered me $100 to go and save my loved ones. Now, in the second example that I gave you, that is the risk that we do when we go about our business when we don't have clearly defined goals. And the third one, as you can see, the goal was different. It was specific. And for that matter, there was a sense of urgency because, again, of course, we're seeing this building on fire, and the only thing or the only person that can save the thing and or the people was you. That is now having clarity. That is something that I want you to pay very close attention to because that, what I just described in those three different examples, is where there is a lack of motivation. In the first example, again, in that plank where it's only 3 feet off the ground, maybe you just get to that next position, becoming a supervisor or a manager, whatever that may be, and that might be your motivation. But in the second one, where there's a lot of risk and not really necessarily the greatest of rewards, again, there's just $100 in the line, being 100 stories in the air, that's where we find ourselves unmotivated. And that's the part you have to be careful with. Because in most cases, most real estate offices, or if you're working in a virtual office, you see the person to the right, you see the person to the left. They're doing a couple of things, some things, maybe prospecting, maybe doing a little bit of lead follow-up, maybe doing some things. At the end of the day, what I'm getting at is that they're not doing the things that will require, in order for you to succeed. And when you don't have that goal and specifically in mind, you're a little bit blinded as to the direction you want to go. So now, how do we identify goals? Okay, goals are not always the easiest to identify. I know the moment that I sit there and say goals, I know some of you are sitting there, oh, a Ferrari, oh, a Lamborghini, oh, whatever that may be, this mansion. Well, we ideally want to identify these goals in a couple of different ways. I call them 1-3-5s. What are 1-3-5s? Well, you have 1 year, you have 3 year, and you have 5 year goals. If you want to do the extra credit, you can do the extra credit, which is 10-year goals. And in that, what I want you to do is I want you to set these goals into 3 different categories. Now, as far as the 3 different categories, number one is business goals. What are business goals? Well, they're things along the line of how many units, how many transactions, how much income. Am I hiring an assistant? Am I adding members to my team? Am I getting the corner office? Am I getting the certain award? Those are business goals. The second one is going to be material. This goes back to the Lamborghini, the Ferrari, and all of those other things that you want in life, which of course would be things that you buy. Cars, houses, boats, trips, jewelry, all of these things. Okay? And those are things that you want to identify as material goals. The third one is personal goals. As far as personal goals, these are actually the hardest, in most cases, to identify. And what separates personal goals? Well, these goals are goals that you cannot buy. You have to earn them. And in order for you to earn them, they're going to be things along the line of like maybe losing weight, gaining weight, maybe running a marathon, reading X number of books, maybe having a stronger spiritual relationship. How about just simply having a stronger relationship with somebody you haven't had in the past or somebody you have with now and just making it stronger? As you can see in these goals, they just aren't things that you can buy. Okay, now I get you, smart aleck, go get liposuction. It's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about the goals that are specific to things that you have to do to earn them. Now, the interesting thing about these goals with personal goals is that most cases, at least for me, they're actually the most rewarding. They're the hardest to identify, but they're the most rewarding. Now, in that, again, you have business, material, personal, and you're going to do that for the 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and like I mentioned, you can do the extra credit and do 10 years. Now, that of course is number one. Number two is you want to share them. Okay, yeah, you want to share them. And what I mean by sharing them is post them all over the place, tell your family about it, tell your loved ones about it, tell everybody you know about the goals that you want to accomplish. Now, this is a double-edged sword, though. Be very, very, very careful because sometimes when you share the goals with the wrong people, they become envious. And in that, it kind of becomes combative and it creates some walls sometimes. So you want to be careful who you share these goals with, but ideally you're sharing them with people that want you to, of course, excel, want you to succeed, want you to get to that next level. But I do want you to share them with the people that actually see you in with what you want to become, which now brings me to the third point, create some accountability. And this accountability are going to be ideally with people that want you to succeed. You don't want to create accountability with the people that don't want you to succeed because they're going to do everything in their power to make sure you don't get them. but create some accountabilities. Okay. As far as the accountabilities, you've identified with what it is that you want, and now you create the accountability to accomplish that goal. Let me just give you just a generic example. I want to buy a new car. It's going to be $100,000 car, and I'm going to put 10% down. So my goal is, number one, of course, to get the car. Number two is to put 10% aside. So my goal is to set $10,000 aside. Well, in that, in order for me to set $10,000 aside, I'm going to put $1,000 from every transaction I close. And now, in order for me to get transactions closed, I need to do X amount of items throughout the day. Skills, prospecting, lead follow-up. That's going to lead me to getting more paychecks in a shorter time frame. Now, where does the accountability come into play is making sure that the day-to-day, think of, like, for example, going to the gym. That's a good example. Okay, did you show up? Did you show up to the office? Did you eat what you're supposed to, as an example, if you're losing weight? Okay, did you do the tasks that you were responsible back in business? Now you create those accountabilities, and you can come from a couple of different directions. You can either create some version of a consequence. If I don't do this by this day, then my consequence is the following. Or you can always do it from a reward standpoint. It's really interesting because actually I kind of work a little bit better with a reward standpoint. And just to kind of give you a little bit of an example, I was a really heavy drinker at one point in time. Coffee, that is. And as far as that is concerned, I would drink anywhere from 4 or 5, even 6 cups a day. And of course, it was no cheap coffee. It was always, Starbucks. It would always be some name brand. Yeah, that's right. 30, 40, 50 bucks a day. And I would do this day after day after day after day. I became pretty addicted. So what I started to do is, of course, I eventually got that habit back in the position that I wanted it to, but I would dangle the carrot. And the way that I would dangle that carrot is if I would do certain activities on Friday, I'd give myself the reward of 1 cup of Joe. Now just imagine the guy that's actually drinking 20, 25, 30 cups of coffee a week to now narrow it down to just 1. That Friday coffee hit pretty well. Okay. So, or the opposite, maybe it didn't because I didn't do what I was supposed to. So those are some things that you want to be very careful with. So create that accountability. Now, with this, sometimes it's going to throw your life out of balance. Okay. And when you throw your life out of balance, you're, as the saying goes, in regards to trying to live a balanced life, we know that one, right? Well, there is no such thing. The more successful you are, unfortunately, the more out of balance your life is. But the pursuit of balance is the key. When you start to realize this is not working out, pay attention to it, get it back to where it needs to go. So that way you're always in this position where you're constantly elevating the things that you want in life and keeping those things in balance. Okay. Now let's move over to number 4. Number 4 is I want you to review your goals daily. Review them every single day. I want you to actually look at the goals and actually see with what it is that you want. This will ideally give you the opportunity to constantly look at the things that actually inspires you. Or you could do the opposite, look at the news, listen to the radio, listen to all this negative stuff. The sky is falling, listen to the naysayers and all of those people. We don't want to do that. Number 5 is I want you to write your goals down daily. Maybe not all of them, but maybe the goals for that year. Okay. I will accomplish the following. I will buy the following. I will be at the following. And write them down every single day. Just imagine how powerful that is. And or again, you can go back and watch the news and hear about, this war and the economy is collapsing and all this other stuff. Well, I'd rather you not. Here's a fun one. Number 6. Number 6 is visit your goals. What do I mean by visiting your goals? Yeah, go visit them. Okay. Now, if they're obviously tangible things, that's what I'm referring to. Now, if it's a house, being realtors, how about going and visiting the house that you actually want in the near future? Go visit them. Okay. That's what we do. If you want a car, go test drive it. If you want a new Rolex, well, go to the Rolex store, go visit them. Go and touch them, feel them out. Because see, here's what happens. Okay. I've been in this position where I have a particular goal in mind and I'm like excited about it. And then I go and take a look at the goal and it's not quite as exciting. Give you an example. There was a point in time where, of course, I wanted all of the luxury cars that were out there. I went out to look at a car and it was super expensive, about $250,000 car. And I looked at this thing, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait one day till I can have this car. Salesperson says, of course, would you like to test drive it? Yeah, heck yeah, let me go ahead and test drive this thing. So I got in the car, test drove it, checked out all the features, and then I said to myself, where am I going to put my golf bag? Now, mind you, at the time, my kids were pretty young. They were probably about 5, 6, 7 years of age. And I'm like, I have no room for a car seat. So it became, in a sense, the wrong goal. Okay. So I looked at something that was a little bit more suiting to the lifestyle that I wanted. Or sometimes you may go and visit a house and you're like, you know what, this is probably a little bit too much house, too much maintenance, so on and so forth. Or it could be the opposite, where you're just like, this is exactly what it is that I want. But it gives you the opportunity to be able to touch the goals, make them, in a sense, tangible. Now, let me ask you, what's the difference between a goal versus a dream? A dream, everybody does this. And as far as a dream is concerned, what's the difference? Well, a dream is a thought. That's really all it is. However, a goal is not only a thought, it ideally is going to be very specific and it also has a deadline. I want to accomplish this. I want to get this by this day. See, the cemetery is filled with billions and billions of great ideas. We don't want that to take place. We want to be in a position where we can actually touch them, visit them, and make it a part of our lives. Now, let me ask you this. How many of you are familiar with the term RAS? RAS, RAS. That's your reticular activating system. I'm not going to get all scientific on you, but the reticular activating system is basically this part of your brain where the moment that you actually feed this information, your mind figures out a way to try to solve it. How do I get Robert the following items? It also puts you in a position where it starts to identify things from a different perspective. What am I talking about? Let me give you an example. So the last car you purchased, before you purchased the car, you were excited about the car. You went to go to the dealership, and before you actually pulled the car off the lot, you really didn't see too many of those cars, right? Well, the moment you actually pull the car off the lot, from the time you pull the car off the lot to the time you actually get home, you're like, wow, there's a lot of these cars. Well, that's your RAS. It's now been activated. It's been turned on. And with it being turned on, it's now identifying all of these things that in our lives we want to accomplish. And that RAS is something that we want to actually turn on. We want to have it on as much as we possibly can, because in that, it's going to give us the opportunity to be able to get anything we want. And I do mean anything. If you want it bad enough, you can actually accomplish the goals that you have set. You have to have the right goals, though. You can't stop. You can't sit there and think about it, because if you find yourself in this position where you constantly think about it from a negative standpoint, your mind, everything is going to push it away. We want to attract, not retract. The other thing is, be careful with the goals that you put down. Now, the reason I'm asking of you to be careful with the goals that you put down is because sometimes the goals might be to impress the Joneses. I had a coaching client, and you'll probably see this at one point in time. You know who you are. This person actually had this amazing vision board. And on this vision board had all of these great things: cars, houses, boats, trips, all of these things on this vision board. Right smack in the middle of that vision board was this green Lamborghini. Now, mind you, this gentleman was a little bit younger, early 20s. I already had, I don't know, how many kids do you have? 4, 5, 6 kids already at that time, living in an apartment, and just doing my job in terms of trying to inspire, but also channel that energy. I asked the gentleman, hey, if everything that's on here, this is a great vision board, by the way, what's the thing that excites you the most? And he goes, oh, right there, that Lambo. Well, I then asked him, I said, well, I'm curious though, when you get the Lambo, where would you park it? Oh, what do you mean, coach? Yeah, where would you park it? Um, I don't know. Again, remember, he lives in an apartment complex. Nothing wrong with that. But I then asked him, how many Lambos do you see at your apartment complex? Um, I don't think I've ever seen one. Okay, well, how many $100,000 plus cars have you seen at your apartment complex? Maybe one? Don't you think we should be getting something before the green Lambo? Yeah. What about a house? What about a garage? So we talked about this, and part of it is, and it's really interesting because this is a story probably 10 years old now, and still know the gentleman, and still has not gotten his green Lambo because goals have shifted, and that's okay. But this is what I mean by sometimes having the wrong goals, because if you have the wrong goals, they might not be inspiring or they might be a little too intimidating. Maybe it's not the 1 year or 3 year goals. Maybe you push it out to like the 5 or even the 10 years, because your mind will work against you if you actually start to put yourself in a position where, you're putting some of these goals just to impress the Joneses. Now let's talk about number 7. Number 7 is exactly that, what I just talked about, creating vision boards, or my personal favorite is what is called a vision book. What's a vision book? Well, it's similar to a vision board. And for those of you that don't know what a vision board is, it's nothing more than basically a poster paper with all these pictures of all the things that you want to accomplish. And the vision book is the exact same concept, but now you're putting it in a journal. I like the vision book simply because when I would travel, it was really hard to take this big gigantic poster on the airplane. And on top of that, when I'm actually on the plane, I can actually flip through the pages and look at all the things. And it's something that I really, to this day, I actually really enjoy. And I love to peruse through the vision book. So be in a position now where you can feel your goals. Now, what do I mean by feel your goals? I'm talking about, like, say for an example, one of your goals is to buy a car. Let's say it's a convertible. How about being in a position where you can feel the breeze through your hair, as an example? How about being in a position where you can smell, the coconuts off of a coconut tree, being in Tahiti, as an example? I don't even know if they have coconuts, or Hawaii, or wherever it is that you want to go. I want you to be in a position where you can feel, okay, your goals and feel them. Now, my 8th point ties into exactly that, which is the visualization. Now, I want you to become better, or do more of, or start to, depending on what level you're at, but I want you to start to visualize. And here's the cool thing about visualization is that it does not take a long time. You can visualize literally in 30 seconds. You can do it in a minute. You can do it in 2 minutes. You don't need 15, 20, 30 minutes to visualize. Okay. Now, if you're driving, I'm going to go through an exercise here real quick. And if you're driving, I don't want you to go through this exercise. So you're going to have to pause this and then do this at a later point. For the rest of you that are actually watching this in a position where you're not going to be, damaging, hurting, or anyone, or yourself for that matter, is I want you to go through this exercise, and I'm going to show you how to visualize. It's really that simple. Okay. Now, you have to really be in a position where you can focus. And if at the end of this you did not accomplish what you wanted to accomplish, don't, quit, don't give up, because I'm going to walk you through on how to become better at visualizing. Now, we're going to go through this. It's going to be a little bit paceful. It's going to be a little bit quiet, but here's what I want you to do. So if you're in an environment where it's a little bit loud, it may not necessarily work. You want to be in a position where you want to have some sort of confinement. And less lighting, less noise, less everything. Here's the exercise. So I want you to close your eyes. Listen to my voice. Close your eyes. Now, in that, I want you to look at the back of your eyelids. I want you to see the veins in your eyelids. Keep them closed. Now in that, I want you to see out in a distance now. And when you see out in a distance, I want you to see a cliff. Now, after that, seeing the cliff, I want you to walk to the edge of the cliff. What do you see? Do you see birds? Do you see ocean waves? Are you feeling a breeze? What is it that you are experiencing? Can you smell the salt in the air if you're seeing ocean breeze? Can you smell the pine from the pine trees? We can go ahead and open our eyes now. For those of you that actually did the exercise the way you were supposed to, as you can see, that pretty much took about 30 seconds. That wasn't really that long. And if you didn't get it, it didn't work for you, that's okay. I want you to try it again. Go back, rewind this, and then do it again. And if you don't get it, do it again. And if you don't get it, do it again. Keep doing it until it becomes easier to accomplish. You'll have to, of course, quiet your mind. Okay, which is not always easiest to do. I know some of you closed your eyes and the first thing that went to your mind was, "Oh my gosh, did I turn off the stove? Did I put the laundry in the washer? Did I put the laundry from the washer to the dryer?" All of these things that go through our minds. Oh my gosh, the kids. I want you to practice this visualization as much as you possibly can. So we went over 8 key points. Let me go ahead and quickly review them so that we're all on the same page. The very first one is 135s. Identify your goals. Number 2, share them. Share them with all of the people that support you and want you to excel. Number 3 is accountability. Create some accountabilities that's going to help you accomplish these goals. Number 4 is review the goals. Review them as often as you possibly can. Number 5, write them down. Write them down. Okay. And then number 6 is visit them. Go out, take a little bit of a field trip and go and visit that goal. Number 7, have some vision books or vision boards, whatever is most practical for you, or both. And number 8 is, of course, the visualization. Practice this visualization. The best part about it, once you become really good at it, you can actually do it throughout the day. You can actually do it while you're prospecting. And again, it's only 30 seconds, maybe a minute, maybe 5 at the absolute most. You close your eyes and you start to visualize. So hopefully this information was helpful. I want you to please, of course, subscribe, like, comment, but most importantly, if you can actually share this, I really appreciate that as I'm constantly looking at growing my audience. Other platforms I'm on as well as I want you to please, of course, visit my Instagram. I do have a private group on Facebook, which is called Top Realtor Training. Top Realtor Training. You just simply have to ask or answer 3 questions that will be asked of you. And then, of course, we're also on TikTok. So for more information, I'm going to encourage you to visit all of those. So hopefully this was some helpful information for all of you. Hopefully this inspired you and it was helpful. And of course, as always, I will see you at the top.